Life is absurd. Part of going through something painful is being able to laugh at it. And I was just lucky enough to have the encouragement around me and have written stuff before to be able to create something like this.
This is the Manna Podcast, a doctor's guide to men's health. Each week on a podcast, we interview the top specialists of the field on various topics in men's health. If you have questions that you are too afraid to ask, we have the answers. This week, our episode is titled Broken Bananah, an interview with a man who broke his penis. My name is Dr. Kevin Chu, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Dr. Justin Dubin. Justin, are you enjoying these Olympics right now?
Honestly, fantastic stuff. I'm just Faulkner is who I wanted to give a shout out. The girl who had won the bike racing long distance out of nowhere, apparently. She is the sister of a friend of mine from college. So very cool.
Wow, that's really cool.
That happened. Yeah, I never met her, obviously, but
right.
But it's still very cool.
It's just amazing, like how many athletes that every country produces, how top notch they are. You know, something urology related that I think we can kind of talk about is this pole vaulter, you know, where, you know, some of his junk just kind of hindered his ability to kind of, you know, achieve the result he wanted.
I called it projectile dysfunction.
Oh, projectile dysfunction. I like that.
He was wishing he did have erectile dysfunction, or no, it wasn't a boner. He just was.
It wasn't a boner. He just is, you know, silver lining in the overall scheme of things. This guy's trending worldwide for some good stuff. You know?
Yeah, I mean, imagine though, just being known for your penis forever. It's probably really dark in some way, you know. But I mean, listen, he's an incredible level athlete, and you're right. Watching these at every level, the male, female side, you know, even these random sports, like it's just amazing to see how talented people are.
Yeah.
Is there a specific event that you found very interesting this year that you never really thought about or anything?
Well, you know, look, my family's from Taiwan, so, you know, I turned on some of that badminton as they, you know, played some of that. And that's a sport that I honestly never watch. Don't think I'll ever want to watch. But when I'm watching it during the Olympics, I'm like, yo, I kind of want to go get a badminton set and set it up outside, you know? I think I'd be okay. But
yeah.
What about you? What sport have you been checking out?
I actually really enjoyed the ping pong. I thought was actually pretty interesting too. I thought that was it's crazy how these guys serve and with the side of the paddle. I thought it was really, really compelling. I never thought it would be so intense. So I actually really enjoyed watching that aspect. Obviously the swimming and the 100-meter was just with Lyle was just absolutely incredible.
But it's also incredible that Usain Bolt is still 2 seconds still faster than what these guys ran. It's insane. Oh man.
But and we're talking about physical feats of strength. That leads us to our interview here with Ross Asdourian, who honestly, this was a fantastic episode. This was a really, really fun episode, a really funny episode for a topic that may not, well, it's funny in concept, but it's not funny if it happens to you, you know? And we're talking about breaking your penis.
This was a highly enjoyable, funny, you're right, funny interview, but it was a lot in retrospect, right? Because Ross will go through the details of when it's happening. And look, it sucks during the moment, but it was awesome that during the conversation we could enjoy it in retrospect.
Yeah. And so all shout out to Ross because he wrote a book about it called Broken Bananah, Life, Love, and Sex Without a Penis. It's fantastic. It's an easy read. You can buy it on Amazon. I highly recommend you give it a read. We do go a lot of the details, but there's a lot in there. He's very reflective on his, experience, his relationships, how it impacted those. And, you know, if you're interested, you know, he was a single guy in New York City in the early or mid 2000s. Definitely relatable. There was some crossover time where I was in New York and he was in New York. So, you know, I can definitely relate to him. in that regard. But it's a really well written book. It's very funny, and the story is very unique. I've never read a book that includes a man who truly did break his penis.
I mean, most guys don't want to talk about it, right? That's the reality. Most guys don't want to talk about it, but Ross is able to tie in everything about his life and give some nuance on, his perspectives, which is a lot. It was really nice that he came on the show with us and shared that as he did in his book. And so, I highly do recommend you go out and check the book out.
Yeah, I think, and the main here and we highlight this a lot. What's really cool is, he gives us his perspective, and in this one we give our medical perspective on exactly what's going down and breaking down. And when we say he breaks his penis, he really breaks his penis. Like he one of the worst breaks I've ever heard in my life. So you'll definitely enjoy hearing about that and how we see it. But I think one of the big things that you have to take away from this is, as a guy, these things can be embarrassing, just like other things, erectile dysfunction, and there's these male stigmas with your health. But, if he didn't go to the doctor and get this fixed, his penis would have been
His
fine.
dick was done. His dick would have been done. A lot of things would have been done.
And we see guys all the time delay care for these kinds of things because they're embarrassing to go in. But, we talk about the signs of breaking your penis in the episode, and definitely, if that happens to you or you're worried about something about it happening, go see someone, whether it's going to the ER or going to your local urologist as soon as possible. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons to be learned here. But overall, I think it's a really fascinating story that is very funny because all ends well, obviously. And I definitely want you guys to, shout out to him, and he definitely deserves hopefully a few reads from from the book he wrote, Broken Bananah, Life, Love, and Sex Without a Penis, because it's a great read, funny, easy read, especially a great summer read.
That sounds good to me, man. I think we should jump into this interview.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. As always, check out the pod on our YouTube channel. This one's actually very good on YouTube because we were laughing a lot. You get to see Ross, and we're all pretty animated during this one, and really pushing the YouTube channel. You can follow us on all socials at the Man Up Pod, TikTok, Instagram, and X/Twitter. And of course, you can listen to this on Spotify, Amazon, or iTunes. So thanks for listening and enjoy the episode. All right, we're here with Ross Asdourian, and I want to thank him for coming on. This is going to be a really fun and interesting and somewhat unfortunate story, but so obviously, we're here to talk about, you wrote a book, Broken Bananah. It's a great book. Kevin and I both read. Very funny, very informative, very personal in many ways. And obviously, breaking your penis is a very embarrassing thing. And it's something that, most people don't even want to talk about their erections or penis at all. And yet you wrote about breaking your penis and you wrote about it in a book, and you're happily talking about it with us in your book and talking about it here on your podcast. So, I guess the real question is, what really inspired you to tell this story about your broken penis?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I think this is a cool forum. What inspired me? Look, life is absurd. I think that I had, and we are going to have a lot of these "that's what she said" moments. I had a happy ending, so it's easier to write. It's easier to tell that story when you come out on top. Again, we can just hit we can have a swear jar here. That thing that'll be filled. The Zephyr Hills bottle will be full by the end. But I think that part of going through something painful is being able to laugh at it, right? And I think that that was, by all means, a maxim for my life, for all the other random things that I did not write about, right, that come into it. But I think a lot of people that have been through stuff, whether it is something like this or others, have found a sense of humor. And I was just lucky enough to have the encouragement around me and have, written stuff before to be able to create something like this.
That's awesome. And, again, thank you so much for coming on to share it. So let's just jump straight into it. Let's talk about the incident. Give us a breakdown of what happened, what position you were in, what happened, what it felt like during and right after, breaking your penis.
It felt great leading up to it. The graph was going up. But but I would say so the position, despite what I have read, although conflicting on what is the most occurrences, was, as you doctors call it, doggy style.
Yep.
Not the penultimate position of reverse cowgirl, as I've read on the internet. Heated debate. You can weigh in on that later.
We will.
And yeah, I mean, you know, it was just a freak accident. I think it was a freak accident of the position, the timing. There's some sort of anatomy and physics that caused just the pencil just broke up, and that was it.
Oof. And you know, just to answer that question, yes, the controversial thing, Kevin and I have actually talked about this a lot. Everyone thinks
and tested it out a couple times
to,
yeah, of course, for science.
Yeah,
for science, yeah,
for science, of course. And reverse cowgirl was always thought to be the position of choice for breaking your penis, but it is. You are a statistic. It is doggy style is the most common position. So you are in the majority of the people who have broken their penis. So congratulations for that.
Let me ask you though. Do you think that people just said it was reverse cowgirl because nobody actually enjoys it, so they tried to like shoo people away from doing it? Like that was kind of my theory, is that no one likes it anyway. They're like, well, if we can just get this campaign together.
I think
okay, see, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. We're learning a lot about each other today.
No, I think it was a thought process that you've got weight on the penis, and so you could probably put a little bit more pressure on it, would you say, and put it in an awkward angle with that weight on top. So that was always the thought process.
I think the thing is that I think that like legit, like, you know, physically, I feel that doggy style is probably a more common position. And I think when you're doing something more common and it still has that lack of visibility, right? You can see, but she can't. It's pretty much reverse cowgirl on fours, if you think about it.
So I think about it all the time. I'm thinking about it now, actually, with the comfort of my brothers here. So let me ask you this. So like when people come in to you, right? Like on your clipboard of questions, like is this like a real statistic? Like what position are you in? Like do you have checkboxes, or is this just like a hearsay thing?
No, there's data. There's data. There's data.
So you're entering this into a computer.
If someone breaks their, I don't ask it when they're normally having sex, but if someone comes in and they break their penis or they think they broke their penis, I ask the question. Kevin, you do too, right?
Justin's line. This is the first question he asks every one of his patients. Doesn't matter if they're coming in for like prostate issues. What position do you do it in? You know,
what position do you do it? Yeah. What are you most scared of? Can you draw a picture here and show me?
No, but like a few weeks ago, I had a guy, ER calls me. They're like, "Doc, guy's penis is all bruised up. You know, he's telling me he did some reverse cowgirl, but we know it was probably the doggy style." So, I asked those questions. How much it really matters?
It's probably not. But for data purposes, it does, because there's a lot of retrospective studies for science. That's how we find out. They do studies where they look back at all the people who broke their penises and they have it documented what position they're in. And that's how we found this stuff out. But back to your broken penis.
Yes.
Which is very important here. Now,
yes,
the signs and symptoms of a broken penis. Can you go through like at that exact moment? If we read the book, but for our listeners, like what you heard, what you felt, and then what immediately happened in that exact moment.
So basically, what happened is I missed, went back in, and then it was basically a pop, right? So then like instantly, in what I would describe as a millisecond, every fear I've ever held for my entire male life came and flashed like Armageddon style before my eyes. I then kind of like did a gymnastic, shout out to the Olympics coming up, like half turn up, I would say at a 35-degree axis, kind of like in tandem with the earth, really, now that I think about this being a poetic moment in my life. And then a Contra style spread fire spray of blood went across the wall in what Banksy would describe as a piece of work. And then I kind of like writhed in pain on my back, right? Very operatically. And then she's still there, woof woof,
having a good time,
like kind of having a time, right? Obviously, she's just had the pleasure of her life, of course, right? Then she was like, "What happened?" And I was like, I like couldn't really speak. I was like, like a noise had already come out of my mouth of like, like you don't really know these noises you can make until you make them. It's like whatever the opposite of your vinegar strokes are, is like that's the noise that I made. And then I basically like kind of got up. I like flipped the light on, and then basically like with the most serious tone I've ever had, I was like, I think I broke my penis. And she like looked at me and she's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "I'm very serious." And then that was then like the adrenaline kicks in and it's like car accident style, like you're in it, right? So the pain isn't immediate. The pain, as I learned, was coming way later. But in that moment, like the adrenaline of it all was pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's obviously very, very scary. So, Kevin, I mean, he said all the key things because a lot of people we see, they come in, they think they broke their penis, but they don't break their penis. You very clearly did by the signs and symptoms of that moment. Kevin, what were some of the things that you like in his story that really signal to us that he broke his penis?
So, that pop sound, pretty signature. Absolutely. One of the things that I always ask patients, like, did you hear a pop? If you didn't really hear a pop, start kind of, questioning it. Other things we look for is, is your penis look like an eggplant? Is it completely bruised up, swollen? If you have like some spots that are like bruised, soft call on that. But that's one of the signature things that we see. Now, you have a little bit of a curveball where you talk about you had some blood coming out. That's
a very bad,
crazy,
very bad sign of other injuries, which we'll get into. But that's a urethral fracture right away. You immediately know that because your penis and your pee hole are two separate compartments. So you should never, if you fracture your penis alone, your urethra, that pee hole should be intact unless you do some very bad things. The other question that I often ask people if they think they broke their penis, I said, do you continue having sex? Because if you can have sex,
it's not
your penis isn't broken. Like some guys come in 2 days later and they go, I think I broke my penis. I said, well, during the event, were you able to have sex? They go, yeah, I finished. I said, well, then you didn't break your penis, because if you hear that pop, it's like a hot dog casing, right? All of that blood is trapped in the tunica albuginea, which is the casing of a hot dog. And when you push that hot dog against the wall and you hear that pop and that snap, that's that casing breaking. And that's what your penile fracture is. There is no bone in your penis, but there are two muscles.
Contrary to what a lot of people think.
Yeah. True. You can't, although some animals do have bones.
I have a question. So when people come in and they think they've broken their penis and you tell them they haven't, are they like kind of disappointed? Like you have to let them down a little bit? Like they're like, "Doc, I broke my penis." And they're like, "Did you finish?" Like, "Bro, did you even finish?" And they're like, "Yeah, I did." You're like, "Sorry, dude, just put some ice on it, man. Go walk it off."
Truthfully, you do tell them. You're like, you're like, "Sorry, dude. I mean, like, I think most of the time they're happy, but yeah, I guess some of them are like,
no, I've definitely met the guys who are like, look, if you potentially have fractured, you have concern for something called like Peyronie's disease later on. I have guys who come in who are like, "Doc, I know I probably fractured a couple years ago because I was really going at it, and that's just who I am. And I was really going at it. And so, that's why. And you're like, no, dude, if you've been having sex since then, your penis wasn't fractured,
Yeah, I think that they're just coming into the urologist's office to flex a little bit, to be honest. It sounds like they're just looking to flex.
I mean, there's always guys, listen, we're men's health guys, so some guys come in, they want to be guys being dudes, just hanging out, talking about sex. It's true, right? Like they want to talk about it. And honestly, if they feel safe and comfortable, I think that we're doing our jobs to some degree. But it is important though. If you do think you did break your penis, it's not an emergency. In your situation, it was actually a true emergency because you had blood coming out of your urethra. But if you do think, I mean, most guys do go right away, but unlike you, like some guys are very embarrassed, and we do see guys who do break their penis and they don't come in for a week, and it can delay our care and can cause problems. Usually it's not an emergency, but it's an urgent thing. So, if you do think you truly did break your penis, you should go to the ER or call up your local urologist and be seen within 24 hours, I would say. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, go to the ER. Don't hesitate,
It's better to have us tell you didn't break it.
I want to add to something that you shouldn't do, and that
Yeah.
you shouldn't DM me on Instagram or Facebook.
Wait, people
Because
do
the
that?
number of people, I'll tell you what, it's not the fame I wanted, but it's the fame I got. I've had at least, and I'm gonna undercut the number, at least 50 people. I would actually think it's actually close to a
Wow.
double, like now that it's been this long, like that message me, like I had a guy message me from his bathroom. I was like, dude, what are you doing?
I'm sure
And
they're
I
sending you
always
pictures
say,
too. I'm sure they're sending you pictures too.
yes, trust me. Again, I'm not looking. I mean, again, I've done a lot of the weird things for a book sale, but like entertain other dudes' dick pics was not one of the things I was ready for. And I'm always like, hey, like go see a doctor. And what I've learned through the process, which you've kind of outlined here, that there's obviously a lot of shame, but there's also a lot of cultural shame. So like Middle Eastern men, a lot of people who have even greater shame culturally, globally. I'd actually say I had more people message me from outside the country, not because they read the book, unfortunately, God bless them, I hope they have now, but because when they search Broken Venus, guess who comes up, right? So they'd message me and I'd be like, please go see a doctor. The only reason that I have what I have now and I can laugh at is because that's literally exactly what I did. And so, because of knowing, having been in the multiverse of what could have happened, right, had I not gone to see somebody, I think that's always, generically, always good advice, like stop Googling, don't DM somebody, go to the doctor. But I had to say it 1,000 times because it's clear that it isn't that obvious. And because of the shame, I think it's even more important, like, culturally, like this actually can get a lot worse. And even if it isn't, even if it isn't a break, like probably better to have someone look at it besides you. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I'm just multiplying. I'm multiplying this obvious PSA that people need to hear.
No, but you make a great
that.
point, and that's why Justin and I, we're so happy that you're coming on. Like, look, this is stuff that's okay to talk about. We try to break some of those usual stigmas that are, against a lot of topics in men's health. But look, you did the right thing at that time, right? You're like, all right, I gotta get to the hospital. So, in your book, you give it actually a really detailed and really humorous breakdown of your hospital experience. So explain to our listeners what happened when you got to the emergency room.
So first of all, obviously, thank you in advance to everybody for buying the book after hearing me read you the entire thing. This is an inherent. It's an inherent. No. I'm inherently thanking everybody for supporting the arts because I'm going to do a dramatic reading of what I remember now, which is just continually a faded version of what's actually in there. So
this is good. They have to read the book to get the details. And
right.
the funny,
they're actually getting two stories. They're getting the real one and the one that I remember that right now. So, so the question is getting to the hospital. Once I get to the hospital,
I know getting to the hospital was a funny part in itself with the ER, but let's just get to the hospital.
Yeah, the bumpiest ride that a New Yorker has ever seen in that fucking street. So I get there, and of course it's like late night, and so you got the B squad, and they're kind of like rotating in. The first thing, there's you guys have the list of tests. So, not them, like you guys knew, but it wasn't you, right? It's the people training. It's the people training to be you.
Right. Residents usually are the first person you see.
Yeah. So, the rotating cast of characters are coming in, and, they give me the, whatever it was, morphine, I'm there. Right. And so the series of tests, started with, obviously them kissing it on the head and making sure that it grew. And then the second one was, hey, that wasn't it. Come on, guys. So it was the scope, right? So we did the scope.
Cystoscopy.
Yeah. And then there was I remember that one, which was like, I thought
retrograde pyelogram. You had a retrograde urethrogram.
Sorry. They rugged me. So they stuck the dye in, and then they were basically trying to get me to pee so they could see where the fucking dye was going. And then I was like, I can't pee. And I'm, then they're like sticking the thing in, they're taking pictures. And of course, like the doctor was like, I was like, oh, well, how long is this going to take? And she's like, I'll be in there for like 30 seconds. And I was like, all right, well, like, do I need pain medicine or anything? She's like, nah, it'll be quick. I'm like, all right. Well, that was the last time I'll ever ask a doctor if I need pain medication because it ended up being 2 minutes. And I actually went back and looked at all my records because I was like, I need to obviously have some journalistic integrity here. So I went back to the hospital and checked my memory and all these things. And it, they bust you guys. Like everything's detailed on like how long things take. And it was literally 2 minutes of them trying to figure out, wiggling the scope around, turning me and taking pictures. And they're like, oh shit, like, well, let's just try and get you to pee. So then I'm like standing there with what I remember as like a 1 gallon gasoline tank that's like cut open on the top. I'm sure there's a technical term for this, but that's what I was seeing. And they're like, I'll give you a moment. And I'm like, sure. And so I'm just like standing there in my reverse moo-moo, kind of like holding this gas tank, and you kind of like have an internal, they're like, all right, I don't know I don't know how I pee, but usually I just think it and it happens, but that's not working. Right. So like whatever, thing happens wasn't happening. So then the guy comes back, they like kind of peek around the door. He's like, are you done? I'm like, no. So when he's like, oh, you can't pee, this is not good. So then of course now we have other doctors coming in and like, no one's a specialist, right? They're smart, but they're like, okay, well, here's what we can do. We can either send you to emergency surgery now, or we can wait and we're going to call the urologist and, the specialist to come in and operate and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me I can either have someone who doesn't know what they're doing open me up now or wait for someone who knows what they're doing? So I opted for the second one. And then by this is like 4 a.m, right? So, at the same time, whoever was there hadn't passed the bedside manner course and is basically whispering in my ear all of the things that could go wrong. He's like, yeah, if you can't pee, sometimes it means that like there might be something backed up. And, if this doesn't repair, then we have to stick a tube in your intestine and you'll basically be draining piss out of your fucking, side for the rest of your life. And I'm like, sick. Thank you so much. Steve, is it Steve? Steve, thank you so much. Like taps on the chest. All right, have a good night. My shift's over. So like, I go to bed, I'm like writing all my emails, like my end of life emails. And of course, like, the people are like, how is this a book? Well, the reason it's a book is because there is a narrative here, right? The beginning, middle, and the beginning, middle, and end. Like the structure of the book is that it begins when I break my penis and ends when I have sex again. The story is basically about like why we are the way we are, like New York dating, our relationship, like our familial relationships, the generic hospital comedy that exists for anyone who's either gone through trauma or has supported people going through trauma. It goes over like dating in New York, all these kind of fun things. So, all that to say was by the time the actual doctor got there, he wheels me in, tells me everything's going to be all right. Like he had passed the class. Like he had just, like,
he was the attending. He was the attending physician.
He was the guy. He was like, hey, you're a young man, you're strong, you're going to be great. I was like, oh, yeah, I fucking needed you. He's like, also, I'm not covered by insurance. I was like, no, no, he didn't do. He's like, I'm a 20% premium. I was like, oh shit. So anyway, so I can pause there. I can keep going to when I.
Well, I do want to highlight a couple of things. Yeah, before the surgery. I mean, at this point, the reveal hasn't been told yet what your true injury is, and we'll get to that, I think, after you wake up from your surgery. But I think a couple interesting things that you described, right? So the cystoscopy, why did they do the cystoscopy? Typically, we don't do a cystoscopy unless we suspect a urethral injury, like I said before. And when you have blood in your, not even in your urine, just spewing blood out of your pee hole, there's a good chance that that's the problem.
The key thing.
Right. So that's one thing that we learn. If you have blood at the tip of your penis or coming out of your penis, you probably have a urethral injury. The retrograde urethrogram is a contrast where we shoot contrast into your urethra, and then we see if it can get through. And then we ask people to pee. And one thing that, obviously you couldn't pee. One thing that you were lucky, though, was you must have emptied your bladder right before you had sex, because if you did not,
oh man,
those few hours would have been fucking hell.
Yeah.
I actually, that is something that because that night I had gone out to the, I'm assuming now closed Ace Bar in East Village. It's closed in my, I will never go back there.
Damn, I think I was there like 5 years ago.
I will never go there, but so it's closed to me. But I distinctly remember like going to the bathroom and then being like, when was the last time I went to the bathroom? And I was like, oh my gosh, that actually saved my life tonight, was
Absolutely.
going to the bathroom. And I actually think that I don't remember, but maybe me trying to pee into the gas can came first, because the injection maybe seems more sensical, and that they were sticking the dye like in, it wasn't like they were like,
They
hey,
take a
drink this.
tube and they push it in through your pee hole. For
Yeah,
sure.
just in case anyone's like, oh, he had some Gatorade, that's chill. I was like, no. They put the Gatorade in my penis, and then they were like trying to push it in, like force it. They were like trying to make me drink with my mouth closed. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but it ain't going where you want it to go. So worth noting there.
Yeah, it could have been way worse. Like if you were really in pain, they would have had to put a suprapubic tube, which is kind of what they were in. I've put one in the ER. Kevin's put one in the ER. It's not fun. It's basically a tube that we take a needle, we insert it through the skin of your belly, and then we make a
it's
hole.
A tube that's coming out of your belly. That's pouring
catheter. Yeah, exactly.
That's what's going on. There's nothing great about it. Your urine's not coming out of your dick anymore. It's coming out of your belly. Coming
out of you're fucking a hole in the side of the boat. I get it.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Hey, but you're gonna feel great though. You'll feel great once that urine's coming out though.
Shout out to Ace Bar. Shout out to Ace. Honestly, they saved you. Yeah, shout out to them. I think it's still open. I haven't been there in years. Damn. Anyway, so you go to the OR and then you wake up. What happens? What do they tell you? How are you feeling? What do you
see? So what ended up happening was, it's like, well, first of all, like, what do I know at this point? I'm just like, I don't know where I am. I don't know anything. I wake up, right? So, what ends up happening is I come to find out that I have basically caused a whole movement on the on the east side, because the doctor opened me up, and he basically was like, holy shit, took a selfie, sent it to his boy across the street who is a urologist, and then he was like, oh shit, let me cancel everything. So as I would later find out, comes over to operate, because he's a urethral reconstruction specialist, of which there are really a handful. And again, the constant phrase is best case scenario from like the worst situation, right?
Yeah.
So it was like having him there, having him be able to come across, like, that is literally what saved, I think, the story, because I had, and maybe we haven't detailed this, but like I had torn both of those muscles that fill with blood, and it wasn't a urethral fracture. It was I severed my urethra. Mm-hmm. So it was the real deal. I was going for gold, and so putting that back together, they have to thread the what's the word I'm looking for here? The catheter.
The catheter, yeah.
Thread the catheter for the two pieces of urethra that are floating in penile space, and then they tie it together with a bow or whatever you guys call it. And had that healed, or been a tiny bit off, I could be gonzo, right? Like, who knows what would have happened. So I wake up and they're like, hey, surgery went well, the doctor's gonna be in to see you, and I'm just like, that moment where you peek under the hood, and it's just like the funniest looking sad.
Was it wrapped? It was wrapped, or
it was like a newborn baby with like a really like giant straw coming out of the top of its head. It was like it was almost like the garb that Mother Teresa used to wear. Like it kind of looked like
it was nicely mummy wrapped. It sounds like
exactly. It had a nice holiness to it. Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe I could get used to this, to be honest. And so that was, then they were like, hey, here's what's happened. Like, this was what happened. And at that was the first time I actually learned, hey, I had to call in somebody else. Once we opened you up, we saw what the problem was. We suspected it. It was actually worse. And so, but it went really well. This guy's one of the top in the world. We did it together. And I was like, please just tell me you took a picture. And, obviously he did, and then he showed it to me, and I was like, that is fucking gross. Please go to that.
That's not going to be a good thing to look at for a lot. So Kevin, we're talking about he ruptured both corpora cavernosa and severed his urethra. How common is that?
Very uncommon. I'll straight up say I've never seen it. Have you seen it?
I think that is by far the worst penile fracture I've ever heard. Like, I've never even heard of people severing both corpora cavernosa.
Generally, it's one-sided. you got a little bit of a rupture near the base of the penis, and it's usually one area, one corpora, not both, and add on the urethra on top of that. That's just that is taking the gold right there, my man.
Yeah,
I
mean,
don't
if
want
you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it right, I guess, right?
Listen, I'm a guy who is all about equality. I wasn't about to have one side get something the other side wasn't going to get. You know what I'm saying? I literally split it right down the middle. Okay, we got to live in the present now. Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I mean, we've seen a decent amount. Penile fractures are not that common, but we've seen a decent amount. And I think maybe one I've seen that has a urethral injury, never a severed urethra. No, I think I've never even seen a severed urethra other than from like a true trauma. I don't know. Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, urethra severing, that's trauma. Never, I mean, other
This
types
is a
of
form
trauma,
of trauma,
not from, not from, surrounding in the context of a penile fracture. So, look, very, very uncommon, but hey, look, man.
I mean, God, I mean, I'm glad you got the right people to do it, because what you have to do, like Kevin said, so you have to, both sides, or if you think of the hot dog analogy, the hot dog casing tears, you have to sometimes deglove the penis, where you basically do you take the skin off and you look at it, and then you
we're going to get
sutures.
detailed and graphic here.
I don't know. You just take sutures and you close that casing back on each side. But when you have a urethral injury, you also have to peel that back. And then you have to kind of literally, like you said, you have to put these two fractured things together over a catheter, because you want to make sure that it stays pinned. And when you have a urethral injury, there's concerns when you have to make sure that the corpora cavernosa, the casing is closed, so that you get good erections, right? Because that's the concern if you don't fix it. Because how do erections work? Well, they trap blood in your penis. And if there's a leak, you're never going to get an erection. And that's why we know if you don't, if you can get erection again, that's why it's probably not a penile fracture. For the urethra, if you don't fix that, it can develop a stricture, which can, at the end of the day, be very problematic. It can prevent you from ever
It's got
peeing.
A ton of peeing issues in your future. So urethra and, cavernosal injuries, these are all really important to get fixed promptly.
And when you guys are seeing people, so do you operate as well? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, is this when you see, or you mentally, or you go through, like, are there multiple ways for you to go about this? Like, do you both have like different philosophies on things, or is it like you see this and you do this? Like, what were the permutations of ways that this could have like gone in the OR that maybe I got the best version or whatever? Like, are there other ways to like address the issue?
Well, if you got Justin and I in the OR, it probably wouldn't have gone as well. I'm just kidding. No. So there are many ways to approach penile fracture. Again, like Justin was saying, so immediately when you find it, if you kind of know what a penile fracture is, like no other imaging, but some guys go get an MRI to kind of really pinpoint where it's at. But yeah, you can take all the skin off and look for the, where the fracture's at. You can do certain incisions right over where you expect it to be and just fix it. So many, many different ways to approach it. And there isn't, by literature, any definitive way to do it. Right, Justin?
No, I don't think there's any definitive approach. I mean, when in doubt, you kind of want to just take a more generalized approach towards assessing everything. You always want to do, if you don't do the cystoscopy, obviously in the clinic, you can do it while they're sleeping if you think that it's not a severe injury. But I think in your case, I think it was appropriate because, they really had to plan ahead because sometimes you have to do a different position. Now, I don't know what position they put you in, whether they put your legs up or you were laying flat. And I don't know if you'll know that either. But sometimes if you know you have a severe urethral injury based off of where it is, you can kind of change the position.
I'm just really happy that if they did put my legs up in surgery, they didn't tell me, because that would have felt really fucking stupid. They're like, hey, here's a picture of you hanging by your legs with your penis hanging towards your mouth. Oh, by the way, then we just operated on you like you were a cow. I'm like, you didn't have to tell me that. I'm good.
Yeah, but no, I think the answer is whatever the surgeon who is trained in that is comfortable with. Right. Kevin and I have actually talked about different approaches towards different kinds of penile fractures and different locations. And,
sure.
The question is, it kind of is different. There is an art to surgery and there's an art to approaching these things where sometimes there's no clear outline, but you have a general gestalt and a general, surgery is often learning all the techniques and the approaches. So when a certain thing comes about, you know how to incorporate all of those things to get the job done. Now, sometimes it's always the same, sometimes it's not, but as long as you've acquired those skills, you should be able to fix that problem one way or another.
Nice.
All right, Ross. Well, let's talk about the tube emanating out of your penis. Let's talk about a catheter.
Yeah. Let's get into the heavy hitter stuff.
Let's
give the people what they want to hear.
Exactly. Look, Justin and I, we do a bunch of surgery. We tell our patients they need catheters afterwards. Tell our listeners how that experience was and, your thoughts on catheters.
Yeah, I mean, generally don't recommend them just out of the gate. Not something that I'm not gonna recommend it, unless you need it, right? Or unless you're going to a really weirdly themed party. But the nice thing about the catheter is I woke up with it already in. So I was like, all right, that's chill. I don't have to worry about that. But as everyone will learn when, they read the book, and again, thank you in advance to the millions of listeners, is that when you get it out, it kind of feels like someone's just pulling like a tug of war rope, like out of your penis, but from the inside of like your gut. And that was really cool, except that when I got mine taken out, then they did that funny little test again where they shoot things into my, penis again. And they were like that moment where they were taking pictures and they stuck the camera in, and then the doctor looks at the other people in the room, and then it's like a little quiet for like an extra half a second. I was like, oh shit. And he's like, yeah, I think we're gonna have to recap him. And I'm like, what? And so if getting it pulled out was like a twine coming out, I think that getting it put back in was like shooting a flamethrower down my penis. That to me was way worse. Also, because I hadn't had that experience. They'd put some clear toothpaste to numb whatever they could. You're in there, right? And so it wasn't great, but because I know there are some people here who probably really like catheters, I will say that not having the stress of peeing ever was kind of dope, right? It's just there, just goes literally like Casper the Ghost, just goes right through you. And then you can do things like ask your friends to help you empty the bag, right? There's just a little bit of fun mixed in.
Yeah.
So, the silver lining is really that you don't have to get up and go as much. But no, would not recommend in general.
So I actually had a catheter in. I think I've told Kevin this. I don't know if I've said it in the podcast, but I was in the ICU playing triple sessions of football in high school. And I had I was just severe dehydrated. I had rhabdomyolysis. So they had to put a catheter in to monitor my urine output because I was almost an acute renal failure. And I was 17 and it sucked going in. I'm not going to lie. It was not good going in, but I totally agree with you. After about an hour and it kind of calmed down, it was kind of sweet. I did not have to move to pee. It was awesome.
I was just hanging.
Talk about in today's day and age, you can just binge watch forever. You literally don't have to move. It's so.
If it weren't for the getting in and getting out, I think a lot more people would jive with it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And then they have they do have the condom catheters for people who are interested. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
For safe cathing.
It's literally
it goes on the outside, so no tube going in. No tube going in. It just catches your urine. Perfect for golf.
Yeah, you wear a condom. What? It's a condom that you put on your penis. At the tip of the condom is a tube that you just piss into. And there's a couple companies that have actually done this. We should actually reach out to them as sponsors, that they do it for sporting events or concerts, so that you put it the condom cath so you never have to leave. You just piss in the bag on your leg.
Oh, okay. But you still have to be able to have the functionality of peeing. You have to be able to fire.
Yeah.
And so if you're if you're at a concert and you
have to put the tube in.
Yeah, I was like, well, you can't pee because I'm like, oh, I get it. So really, it's just it's like a single use diaper. It's like a penis diaper. You know what? I'm not gonna brand this. I'm just. I just don't like I thought I had something. The condom thing is that's a weird. there's something weird happening. I don't like it. We're going to rebrand it. Once they get sponsored, we'll white label it. Everyone here can have their own brand. We're doing good. We're doing good.
I love it. I love it. Now, so we talked about the catheter, but what about the rest of it? Obviously the biggest concern is really getting an erection. So, was there a rehab process? I know you talk about it in the book. You take some medications to help you. Now, what was that process like? What were your concerns? Did they tell you anything about the chances of getting erections back? Because obviously that's the really big thing when we're talking about, a penile fracture in general.
Yeah. I believe the chapter is called The Midnight Boner, that this occurs in the story. And I would say it was both one of the happiest and most painful moments I had experienced, which I assume is what it was like losing my virginity at age 30. No, I'm kidding. It was younger. It was younger, but it wasn't that young.
27.
You have to read the book to find out. No, yeah. I have to drop in these cliffhangers here.
Absolutely.
So it was a surprise. It was definitely in the night, and I woke up and I looked down, and it was like in Dune when like the monster's coming out of like the sand, except imagine like someone was jamming a rod down the sand monster's throat and it like wouldn't let it out of the sand. Like that was the moment. And I was like, I just could not, like, there were such opposing feelings. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm getting an erection. And I'm like, oh my God, this hurts so much because my penis is trying to swallow the straw or the catheter. And so there was like blood around it, and it was just like a weird horror film.
How far out after surgery was this?
I mean, I don't know. What is time? It would have been during the second catheter. So it would have
several
been
weeks, probably at least 2 to 3 weeks out.
I was going to say 3 weeks because I had the catheter for 4 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a great sign because, most people do get their erections back after a repair. So that, erectile dysfunction is usually at least salvaged to a large degree when you do get the repair. If you don't get the repair, obviously that's when the problem happens. And that's why we always say, if when in doubt, go talk to someone about it. And then, so the catheter comes out. You're starting to think about having sex again. Like, tell us about that journey, because I'm sure that was scary about just using this thing.
Sure. I mean, just to be clear, I was always thinking about having sex again, but at this time I was at least enabled to. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I mean, I can't help it. You know the statistic. But when it was time, I was like, oh, okay. I don't want to take this to like the F1 racetrack. I want it to be in like a familiar neighborhood. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where at this point, right, like if you were in the circle, like you kind of knew what was happening. But I mean, I think it was 3 months or something. I want to say 3 months. Again, this is a recounting of recounting. Right. So yeah, I mean, I will say it was a little nervous. I did not finish. I did not need to. I just wanted to put my feet in the pool and make sure that my feet wouldn't fall off or disintegrate,
a little test run.
That I would drown. That's it. And so we both left extremely dissatisfied. It was perfect. Again, very equal. I'm an equitable guy. Yes. And so yeah, I think that was once that monkey was off the back, it was like, okay. And like most sports injuries, you're not going to be at full strength for 6 to 8 months.
100%.
So that was, I wasn't going to be able to juke, the way that I used to in the two positions that I always do. So, it was good.
It's a little rehabbing to get back to that, two move,
Just for science.
So, like we said before, this is a very personal, embarrassing thing. And you describe figuring out, who you're going to tell about it and how you're going to tell them. So what was your thought process and how to approach this?
In telling people?
Your parents, your friends?
Sure. So I had already written my doomsday emails to someone who I was like kind of dating, but wasn't the girl I had sex with. And again, there's another cliffhanger. Yes. Then I didn't tell my parents until well after the surgery had happened, because I wanted not hysteria. I told my brother in case I died. And then I had to tell my room. I told my roommate, obviously this was in New York. We basically, live with each other on top of each other. And so it was kind of like, if you came to visit me, you got the story, like you got what happened. And if you didn't, you heard I was in a bike accident. So those were like the two ways of finding out. And some people honestly didn't find out until I put the book out, including like my boss and a handful of other people, which I had like
Wow.
since changed jobs. But it was a very funny, like, what, when you were the bike. So like that was kind of the, because I think I wrote it 4 years afterwards, 3 years afterwards. I don't really, 2, I don't really remember at this point. Yeah, so it was a slow drip of who found out and how. And most people, to be honest, like we're pretty, first of all, flabbergasted. And I mean, like most things, people just want you to be okay. And so, it doesn't really matter what it is. You could stub your toe, right? Like, which, this is the nice thing about, unfortunately, these are weird times to figure out how much people really love you. But it is also, always nice to have support when you do need it.
Now, you use humor, and obviously we're having a great time with this. And in the book, you use humor. In real life, you're obviously a very funny, pretty easygoing guy. And how have you used humor, through your experience? I mean, like through the experience, like you write about it, you're laughing the whole time, you're cracking jokes. Like, I think it's really admirable because Kevin and I see a lot of people, and a lot of people don't fuck around when it comes to their dicks. And that's just a fact. Like, how have you used, how important was humor in helping you through this experience and through the experience of going through things after this? Obviously people know about it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that the quote is something like, life is very serious. And if you don't have a sense of humor, you're going to have a tough time getting through it. And I think that at the end of the day, again, we're a product of what we've already been through. So I've, lived, through supporting people in very tough hospital situations with different diseases, when I was younger, volunteering, like all these things that, again, it's not like how much in control am I of the situations that people that love me have put me in to make me a better person. Right. And because of that, when you do get in those situations, first of all, you understand that the people that are there to help you. And no matter how much of an asshole you are, it ain't going to change shit. In fact, the nicer you are, right? Yeah, you might get stuck with someone who doesn't know anyone, but or know anything, but like that's kind of out of your hands. And so I think, again, having been through the valleys, it makes it more accessible for me to use. That's a tool that I get to use. That's a gift for me. And I think that being able to do that and show that is a way to get through these things is, like most things, what the joy of having it is to give it. So for me, that is where I think that using humor as a tool very outwardly is something that everyone can do, or you don't have to be funny, right? Because life is funny, right? The truth is funny. It is just acknowledging that you are going to have to go through this injury, and you're going to have to do the same rehab. You have to take the same meds. You have to empty your piss bag out just like everybody else. And it doesn't actually matter if you're angry about it or not. So you might as well not be, unless you absolutely have to, right? If the bad things are going to happen, you might as well let them happen and not dread them until they happen. And I think that's been like the reminder of this. And I think that, I think I open the book, people like, what's the message? This is actually something that someone asked me, that then I ask people when they're writing. I go, what are you trying to tell your audience? What are you trying to say?
That's literally what we were about to ask you. That's what we were about to ask you. Yeah.
And I think the answer is like, look, it can always be worse, right? I don't care how bad it is for you. If you are listening to this, if you have a device to listen, if you are walking with 2 feet and 2 hands and you were born with 2 parents, it can be worse, right? And I think that like having that as a ticket on your ticket that gets you in the door is what this is about. And the book tends to disappoint people at how there actually is a message here, or there is something to walk away with, where you have a bit of reflection and have fun, and we can joust and laugh about this. That's the best part, right? And the reality is that if you know anyone who's been through anything, forget urology, cancer, anything, go all the way down, or paraplegics, whatever it is, it's like they're actually usually the ones that now have a gratitude for being able to exist that people who haven't had to go through these things don't. And so, there's like this great clip of Stephen Colbert talking about like how the things that we go through that are the hardest actually are our greatest gifts. It's like, and I think that's the kind of stuff that is, it's like, man, you think about that and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's actually what makes me enjoyable. That's what makes me like thankful. That's what makes me like empathetic to other people. And I didn't like going through it at the time, right? Like I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Maybe my worst enemy, but I don't have, I don't, like I have too many like buckets in the enemy that I can't pick one out. But like, if I could, maybe that person, but other than that, like you don't wish for them to go through these things. But at the end of the day, like if you're able to make it out, I think that it is, imperative to have the perspective, that it can be worse. Otherwise, you're just kind of kicking and grumbling the whole time. And it's just not, life's too short for that shit.
That's a beautiful message.
How about that for a penis book message?
Yeah, we're going to clip that right there and just run that over and over right there. That was fucking beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great way to wrap it, man. I think that was a great conclusion for it. So I guess the question is, where can our listeners who are so in love with your book, they've probably purchased it already, but if they haven't, copies. Where can they find it? Where can they purchase it? Where can they follow you and learn more about you?
Sure. Well, the book is Broken Bananah. There are no other books of that title on Amazon. If you want to get on my email list, it is thelist.digitalross.com. And we can talk about being horny and dying and philosophy and all these things. But for the most part, man, if you buy the book and put it on your shelf and signal to other people that you are a well-read individual, I guarantee you this is going to be a really funny dinner conversation, especially at Thanksgiving, where there's a lot of elders around that don't get the opportunity to voice their sexual desires and frustrations and escapades throughout their life. So it's really for the people,
You're a man of the people. You're just
I'm an equitable guy. Left and right, equal breaks.
Also, feel free to send dick pics over that way too.
DM me, definitely DM me all of the worst dick pics. They're not even good. They're just the worst.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. As always, this was really great. I told my mom that I was talking to someone who broke their penis today, and she said this is breathtaking content that you're creating. And so, I just wanted to shed that information to you. But if you guys, as always, thanks for listening. You can check out the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Prime, as always, and at the Man Up Pod on all our socials. Check us out there. Thanks again to Ross. Check out Broken Bananah. Fantastic book. Really funny, really informative. And a shout out to you, Ross. Thanks again. And
thank you guys.
Talk to you guys next time.